Hi class, in lesson 3.6 we will be adding and subtracting fractions with like and unlike denominators. Learning targets for today, we will write number sentences to represent one whole, create models to represent adding and subtracting of fractions, and finally we will add and subtract fractions with like and unlike denominators. Key terms for today: common denominator and least common denominator, or LCD. If we look at the lesson introduction, it goes by many names in the world. In Germany, it is called Studentfutter, and in Denmark, it is called Studenthavre, which loosely translated means student oats. It has even been called Gorp, but generally in the U.S., this healthy and high-energy snack is called trail mix. What types of trail mixes have you had? Do you have a nickname for trail mix? What is usually in the trail mix you eat? Go ahead and talk about that with your group members as we get started today. In problem 1, we are going to be looking at number sentences for one whole. There are many ways to represent one whole. The diagram shows two different number sentences to represent one. So if we look at the first one here on the left, 1/2 plus 1/2 is equal to one whole. And if we look at the one on the right, we have 3/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 is equal to one whole as well. Make sure that you find your fraction strips. You're going to need them. Using your fraction strips for number 1, you're going to write 6 addition sentences that equal one whole. You can use some fractions with the same denominator, but you must use at least one fraction with a different denominator in each of your addition sentences. So go ahead and do letters A through F to get started with your group members. Here are some samples of fraction addition sentences that you could have come up with. For letter A, 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. B, 1/2 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. Letter C, 2/3 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. Letter D, 6/12 plus 1/3 plus 1/6. Letter E, 2/8 plus 1/4 plus 1/2. And for letter F, 1/6 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/3. Two or more fractions have a common denominator if the denominators in each fraction are the same. A common denominator is a whole number that is a common multiple of the denominators of the fractions. The least common denominator, or LCD, is the least common multiple of the denominators of two or more fractions. Number 2 tells us to now use our fraction strips, and we are going to write addition sentences that we wrote in question 1 to help write addition sentences with each fraction having a common denominator. Now, instead of writing all 6, we are just going to do 3 of them. All I want you to do is write down sentences for letters A through C. Now, the answers that I go over with you are going to correspond to the answers that I had for number 1, so refer back to that if needed. So go ahead and do letters A through C with your group members and write your addition sentences with each fraction having a common denominator. For letter A, I had 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. I know that my common denominator is going to need to be 4, and the addition sentence is going to be equal to 4/4 then when I add them all together, which is a form of 1. For letter B, I had 1/2 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. My common denominator is going to be 6. I know that the number sentence is equal to 6/6, which is then a form of one whole. And finally, for letter C, I had 2/3 plus 1/6 plus 1/6. Again, my common denominator is 6. My addition sentence is equal to 6/6, or one whole. Let's take a look at problem 2 on page 170, and this is going to refer back to the lesson introduction with the trail mix. The teachers at Riverside Middle School decide to make trail mix for an upcoming field trip to the Natural History Museum. They have decided on 3 different recipes. So we have the sweet and nutty trail mix, we have the popcorn trail mix, and we have the fruity trail mix. To get started, I would like you to answer letter A and B with your group members. For letter A, the teachers are going to need 1/2 cup of raisins for the sweet and nutty trail mix, and they are going to need 1/3 cup of raisins for the fruity trail mix. There are not going to be any raisins needed for the popcorn trail mix. For letter B, No, the answer is no, the denominators are not the same. You cannot look at 1/2 and 1/3 and determine the answer without having the same denominator. At the top of page 171, you can use other strips, other fraction strips that you have to help you solve the problem from part A. Consider the fraction strip model and the corresponding fraction sentence. Go ahead and answer letter C and letter D with your group members on page 171. So we can see for letter A, if we take our strip of sixth, we can see that 5/6 is going to also represent 1/2 plus 1/3 from our original question back on the previous page, if you can determine the total amount of raisins if you're adding 1/2 plus 1/3. For letter D, the fraction 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6, and we can see that here. And we know that 1/3 is going to be equivalent to 2/6. So now you have determined the equivalent fractions, and now we have common denominators. So you can simply add the numerators together in order to calculate the sum. So 3/6 plus 2/6 is going to give you 5/6 for your answer, and that represents the length. When fractions do not share a common denominator, they are sometimes called unlike fractions. So for number 2, I want you to write a rule for adding unlike fractions. In order to add unlike fractions, you are going to rewrite one or both of the fractions using a common denominator. Then you can simply add the numerators of each fraction. You want to make sure that you keep the denominator then the same. We are going to skip number 3 in problem 2 and move on to problem 3 on page 173. Now we are looking at what is the difference. You can also use fraction strips to help you determine the difference in a problem. Let's consider the following question. How many more cups of pumpkin seeds are used in the sweet and nutty trail mix than in the popcorn trail mix? So go ahead and answer letter A, B, and C with your group members. For A, you're going to be sketching. B, you're going to be writing a math sentence. And then C, you're going to be determining what is the difference. If we looked back at the table, the problem that we are trying to solve is 3/4 minus 1/8. So the sketch that I have drawn, or that we see drawn here, we broke up 3/4 into equal sized parts representing eighths. 3/4 is going to be equal to 6/8. So all I have to do then is be able to determine that I have 5/8 left for my answer when I look at the fraction strip. For letter B then, if I write it out as a math sentence, 3/4 is equal to 6/8. 1/8 is obviously equal to 1/8, so 6/8 minus 1/8 is going to give you 5/8 then for your difference. So for letter C then, there is 5/8 cups more pumpkin seeds in the sweet and nutty trail mix than there is in the popcorn trail mix. We are again going to skip number 2 on page 174. Let's move over to problem 4 and talk about the rules. You have seen that adding or subtracting unlike fractions is different from adding or subtracting fractions with common denominators. The table describes characteristics of like and unlike denominators and the process for working with both like and unlike denominators. So if we think about like denominators first, if we are adding or subtracting, all we have to do is add or subtract the numerators in order to calculate the sum or the difference. The denominator is going to stay the same. If we are looking at unlike denominators, what we are going to do is first write the fractions as equivalent fractions that have the same denominator. So we should hopefully know by now that it is the most efficient to use the LCD, or the least common denominator, which is the least common multiple. Then you're going to add or subtract the numerators, and you're going to keep the common denominator the same. So hopefully that's helpful. Come back and refer to this table as far as understanding the rules when you are adding or subtracting with like or unlike denominators. To determine the sum or difference of two fractions, first determine the least common denominator, then you are going to add or subtract, and then finally simplify the result if possible. So let's look first at the example that we see here. We are taking 5/6 minus 1/3. The least common multiple of 6 and 3 is going to be 6. So our least common denominator will be 6. 5/6 I don't have to switch. 1/3 I have to multiply by 2 over 2, which is our form of 1, to get my equivalent fraction of 2/6. 5 minus 2 is going to give me 3. 3/6 is my fraction then when I subtract, keeping the denominator the same. Again, you have to make sure you simplify if possible. When you are simplifying, you find the GCF of the numerator and the denominator. In this case, the GCF would be 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2, so 1/2 is my answer in simplest form. Number 2 at the top of page 176 tells us to determine the least common denominator for each. Then we are calculating the sum or difference and finally simplifying the result if possible. Refer back to the example on the previous page if needed, but please make sure that you are showing all of your work. Go ahead and do letters A through G with your group members. For letter A, my LCD is going to be 30. My equivalent fractions are going to be 5/30ths and 12/30ths to give me an answer of 17/30ths. For letter B, LCD is 12. My fraction in simplest form is 1/4. Letter C, LCD is also 12. My fraction in simplest form is 1/3. Letter D, the LCD is 15. Fraction in simplest form is 1/5. Letter E, LCD is 40. Fraction in simplest form is 21/40ths. Letter F, the LCD is 55. My fraction in simplest form is 1 2/55. And for letter G, the LCD is 18. My fraction in simplest form is 5/18. Remember that in order to determine each LCD, we are going to be finding out what the least common multiple is of the given denominators. So really the least common denominator is the least common multiple of the two denominators. Let's finish up the lesson today with number 4. Go ahead and read over the problem situation and answer with your group members. The group is going to be correct. The least common denominator of the two fractions is going to be 12. 2/3 is equal to 8/12. 1/4 is equal to 3/12. So 8/12 plus 3/12 is going to give me 11/12, and that is in simplest form. That is going to do it today for lesson 3.6 on adding and subtracting fractions with like and unlike denominators. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.